So Chris isn't here, so we don't have any crazy attempt at an intro this week.
Blissful peace.
Bliss. I get. No! He just got here. Damn it!
Everyone, shut up.
He almost escaped.
Now that we've done the intro,
Yeah.
let's launch right into our first topic. Christian, what is that?
Yeah.
So my first topic is
Damn
what
it.
do drow accents sound like?
Australian. We've covered this.
Yeah. They're from land down under.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no. I got this, guys. If you are in the American South, they sound like you're from the American South. If you're from England, maybe a bit of English accent. If you're from Australia, you're gonna throw another shrimp on the Barbie, because you're playing in whatever native language is that you are actually at. So there is no accent there. Just like dwarves don't technically have a Scottish accent.
So you remember when I spoke to Delilah S. Dawson a little while ago when she was at Atomicon and she had an upcoming book, Ravenloft, Heir of Strahd?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually... Yes, Heir of Strahd, yeah.
Hair. H-A-I-R. Heir of Strahd.
Hair is going to get you.
The book came out on Friday, and I bought the book on hardcover, and I got it delivered over the weekend, and I had to go LARPing. So I was like, you know what? I'll try audiobooks out, because we talked about it last week with the audiobooks for the Dragonlance Chronicles. I also found those, by the way, haven't listened to them yet. But I was listening to the Ravenloft Heir of Strahd, and the narrator does a fantastic job, but for some reason, the drow barbarian that has a goblin kitty Tressrum has an Australian accent. And it bothers me because it keeps saying mate and has a like g'day accent to it, and it's just so weird. I don't know how to feel about it sometimes.
Do they have different voice actors or people?
No, it's one.
Or
it's
the
one
same
lady.
person narrating.
It's the same person narrating. She does a different voice for every character. Like the Kenku, she has a voice for the Kenku. She has a voice for the Artificer, female human. There's a Tiefling Paladin, female. She gives kind of like a gruff voice to. And then there's an Orc Mage, a male Orc Mage, and she gives it kind of like this, like almost like sophisticated, grunty kind of voice to it. Just a fantastic job. I'm not complaining about that at all. But at first I thought the drow just had like a southern accent, like a southern drawl to it. But no, it's just straight up Aussie.
So my question there is, did she come up with different voices, or was she given some sort of directorial notes as to what they should sound like?
I'm not sure. I would love to actually interview like the narrator or just ask, because it sounds like they were given some direction. I'm not
right.
I'd have to look up who actually did the narrating. I don't have it on hand. But it does sound like they kind of took the idea and what each person's like get up was and kind of went with what they thought they would sound like. But the drow being Aussie was just almost it was a meme, and I was like, all right.
That's
I will say, so this was like an Audible book or something like that you're listening to? So I will say that if it's a single voice actor doing the voices of all the characters, a lot of that is, I think, it's just for the person to get in their head which character is which voice, so that they can differentiate the two. Because it's really hard, especially when you have like a party of 5 or 6 people you're trying to voice, to do like, I'm the little hobbit voice, and then differentiate it between the gruff orc shaman. So it was probably a little bit of both, probably vague direction of whoever wrote the book, but also probably just the voice actor, because I listen to a lot of Audible books, and the best voice actors are the one that do voices, whether it's an accent or not.
So she also does a vampire Transylvanian style accent for Strahd. Each of the Strahd's minions that show up have a different variation to them. Like you can tell when she's like a male vampire spawn versus a female vampire spawn. There's a difference.
That's cool.
When Strahd's love interest shows up later on, as like a spirit, there's a different voice for her too. It's Ellie Gossage is the narrator.
So I will say that I've seen some people that do like audiobook narration and stuff talk a little bit about their work doing it. And it seems to be there's usually some like notes, not like explicit, you must do this, but some kind of ideas of this is kind of what we had in mind or what this character is to try to help get them in the frame of the story and what they're going to be doing and how they should approach each character, even if some of the backstory or whatever, the conceptual ideas that form a character that may not be in the book, but just to give them, root them in the way in there. And sometimes these directions, from what I've seen, don't necessarily come from the author of the book. If sometimes another company is behind doing the audiobook or the audio recording, and that company decides what those notes are about what these characters should be, not always the author.
So Ellie Gossage, she is a Shakespearean actor, it looks like. She's based out of New York. She has a BFA in drama from Tisch Studio of the Arts. She was part of the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey as their part of the COVID company. So she has this long list of theater and voiceover work and a lot of just like I said, she's doing a fantastic job. It's just the drow Aussie just keeps getting to me. And the fact that it has a goblin cat, you know what I say when I say goblin cat, right? Those hairless cats.
Oh, like Dr. Evil?
Yeah, like Dr. Evil's cat. Like, yeah, it's a hairless cat trust room. So, like, it's already like 2 levels of weird. And, like, the drow is super attached to it. And so, like...
So, I gotta ask, because I haven't looked this up
so
yet.
So it's a space cat?
Is the Heir of Strahd a book that has a cover that looks like it's just somebody playing through Curse of Strahd?
Yes, it does. On the front picture, the dead center is the orc, and then you have the Kenku to the left or to the right of the orc, and the artificer, the paladin, and the drow, and Strahd's in the back holding his deck and stuff like that.
Honestly, when I saw that artwork, what I thought it was is it looked like your latest trending emo boy band had just somehow got sucked into Ravenloft.
I mean, it really, honestly, that's exactly how it starts. that's how it starts. It starts
really selling it. Yeah.
No, the book is fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. I had the 3-hour trip to the LARP and back, so I listened to about half of it so far.
Really, that's what it is. It's like a My Chemical Romance cover band just got sucked into.
Yeah, I gotta look this up there.
Okay, just look at the cover. That's what it looks like. That got sucked into Curse of Strahd, and now they're stuck there and must fight their way out, or play their music and fight their way out,
or go cry at a corner.
Well, the best part about it though too is like when I was talking to her at the when I was talking to Lila at the con, she was very knowledgeable about the whole setting and everything. And she knew a lot more about the other domains of dread and everything, and that actually comes into play later in the book. Kind of, I mean, I don't even know what the spoilers would be yet. I haven't got that far. But she knew her stuff, and then like as I'm listening to the audiobook and the company's running around Ravenloft, I can track exactly what room they're in based on the maps, the official artwork maps have been put out for Ravenloft. So like when they say they go to the banquet hall, I know where that is. And if they go out to the left, there's the room with the gargoyles. And that's exactly where they go throughout the audiobook. And they go, oh, then I go up the stairs and to the right, and here's the study. And like it follows the map exactly. And it's been quite fantastic.
I'm playing through Curse of Strahd, so if you just want to keep walking me through all of the locations, you go right ahead.
Yes, spoilers for a 50-year-old module.
Yeah.
And it's saying it's like it looks like the author put a lot of care into basically making sure the characters are going through Ravenloft and going to the correct rooms at the correct time, the correct way. They're not like busting through the study and showing up like in an alchemy lab because there's none there. They bust through there and there's a staircase they have to go down, So it's really cool that they're running around Ravenloft and it's almost picture perfect from as I can envision the map in my head. So I definitely suggest it quite a bit. Maybe when you're reading it, the drow doesn't have an Aussie accent. but I'm definitely going to be doing that now. I think just to piss off my wife. Start giving all giving all the drows Aussie accents.
Mm-hmm. That's nice.
But that's all that I had. Nice being here, guys. See y'all later.
I mean,
good show up, man. Get out of here.
Oh, who are we, by the way? Since we never.
Shit! I thought you guys did that.
No, you just jumped the gun.
That was a bold-faced lie.
Yeah, you totally jumped the gun on us.
Surprise attack.
Yep. Okay. But we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. I know this is very late into the podcast where we're doing this.
I'm Jay. I'm sorry.
Yep, we did. I'm Jay. I'm joined by Christopher, Christian, and Dan. Say hi, guys.
Guys.
Hello there.
Good day, mate.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yep. Every week, that's the new thing. Follow us on all the socials, etc. All right, cool.
What are the socials? You have to say them specifically, or else people can't find.
Look, go to Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. You will find our podcast. That's the most important place. You can also find us on the YouTubes. Grumpy Dungeon Masters, man.
Okay.
Man, you don't even have to do that. Just Google Grumpy Dungeon Masters, and you'll find us.
You'll find everything. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we do pop up in if you search for Grumpy Dungeon Masters in the audiobook on the Audible app, we show up in there too.
Yeah, there's all kinds of there's other socials that for some reason someone will advertise but aren't ever used, so don't go there.
Facebook.com/Grumpy Dungeon Masters.
Yeah,
that's the only place I post. I stopped using X. Like, I don't know. Yeah. That place is horrible.
Yeah. All right.
Moving on.
Oh yeah. What to talk about?
Yeah, I love it. Moving on. Nobody knew what we're talking about. So I have a thing that I wanted to talk about that happened over the weekend. And this is because we are the Grumpy Dungeon Masters and we actually do try to help newer game masters. This is a scenario that came up that I'm going to throw to you guys and see how you would have handled it. So you have players and they've just traveled from one city to another city. The city they land in is it's a roguish type city, lots of gambling, lots of criminal activity, things like that going on. And they have fighting arenas, etc. So you know that some of your players are going to want to go gamble, and some of your players are going to want to go fight in those arenas. Some of your other players, however, are not going to do that. So if you're running the game, how do you manage to keep everybody engaged in that scenario?
Here's how I'll step up first. Here's how I would do that. All those things sound like perfect downtime activities. These are not activities that you need to focus on and through the play. You can go through, so say, hey, okay, you guys all have things you might want to do in the city, so we're going to have kind of like a downtime turn. You get to pick an activity, what you want to do, and then we'll resolve how that plays out. And so everybody gets to pick one thing, and then you go around and resolve your things, and then you go. And if somebody wants to continue to do downtime or they want to do more, do the stuff until you set a limit out as a DM. You can maybe say, okay, you guys can have anywhere from 1 to 3 downtime turns here to, spend a couple of days here doing that kind of stuff before it's time to be adventurers. So that is the reason we're playing this game.
Yep, that sounds like a pretty good way to handle it. Would either of you other two do it a different way, or would you just kind of try to run it that same way?
Pretty much the same way. I mean, I agree. There's certain people that do like running around doing city adventures and, hey, I want to go and bet here, I want to do that. But you know what? In D&D 5e, there's ways to do that with, I think, in Xanatars and stuff like that, and just basically it's dice rolls, and it's everybody updating their characters and going shopping and shit like that. Some of the stuff does not require the DM's intervention either. Like, if I just want to go grab some stuff from the general store, book cost, guys, just do your own math. I don't think that's really necessary. But as a DM, you're not there to entertain the players. I mean, it's a group storytelling task here, and you're playing adventurers. I understand that in D&D and especially in older editions of D&D, merchants and magic was very much an important thing, but a lot of people just don't give a shit about that. They just want to go back out on that adventure. So, it really depends on the party you're running with. Was this a specific thing that happened during your game?
I'm gonna go through. I'll go through all the details of it. I was just sort of throwing this out here to see your thoughts on it before I get into all of it.
The fact that everyone wants to split off and do individual thing is kind of what keys you to this is not an adventure. This is not a group thing that people want to do. Everybody wants to kind of, cool their heels a bit or to, just kind of, putz around a bit. And that's fine, but that sounds like downtime to me. That's why I say that. If everybody was invested in, hey, we all want to go, I don't know, enter in the fighting pits and all get in there as a team and fight, then that's something you can run as normal, whatever system you're using. You can run and go, okay, cool. You guys are all going to do this. We'll run this like an encounter. But trying to run separate, essentially solo sessions for everyone, people are going to dive too deep into the weeds, and you're going to end up with a whole lot of other bored players that are sitting around on their butts while one guy takes 30 minutes to have his gambling encounter, and that does not make for good D&D for everyone else.
Yeah, that is the type of game that you run when you're playing like Vampire Masquerade. Because Vampire the Masquerade is about backroom dealing and when the DM is off playing an NPC with somebody else in another room, all the other PCs are busy plotting against the PC who just stepped out of the room, and that's fine. But that's not really what D&D is about, because you're supposed to be working as a group with not trying to kill each other necessarily. In most D&D games, it is. And I will say that as far as like my games in the last 20 years I've been running them, I haven't had an option for Merchants and Magic, really. Like, there's been a town or two you can go to, and like, hey, I'm going to go and get the basic necessities for us to go on our adventuring, and then, we'll find a place to stay. And that's usually the limit of it. It's not much more difficult than that. But then again, I have been running, variations of book published, epic adventures like Curse of Strahd and Rime of the Frostmaiden or Ruins of Undermountain. So there isn't really options for that sort of activity anyway.
Yep.
However, like going back to the beginning of D&D, and like the fighter who reaches X level can build his castle and have his followers and stuff like that. The only time that I would actually do that is if I was intending for that to be an option. And MCDM came up with a pretty decent set of rules for that. And we already talked briefly about the DMs, the 2024 DM Dungeon Master's Handbook, about how it was kind of a weak version of it. Of downtime activity stuff. Building your alchemy lab and things like that. I don't know. I've never enjoyed running that or trying to world build that, but I do know, some players enjoy it and some DMs enjoy it too. I've played with certain DMs for years, and they always had like a base of operations or a town that you ended up adopting, and you have to do all these things, and it was basically you're running your town, which becomes a barony. The barony becomes a principality. The principality becomes a kingdom, and suddenly one of you's become the king or the emperor or whatever.
Yeah, but that's a whole different style of game. I've actually run that before.
Yeah, and if you're going into that like Birthright style, sure, that's great. But like, if you're I just want to sit down and roll dice with my friends, and I only got 3 hours to do it. I don't want to be spending 2 of those hours looking up what the price of +1 longsword is.
Yeah, me and Chris have talked about that on here before, because we were in a Star Wars game where that's literally
that's what I was waiting on.
Yeah, that's what the whole game devolved into.
And Star Wars has Star Wars RPGs have always had that issue, going back to I think 2nd edition version that I first played back in the early 2000s and all the way through 3rd edition, and it was just like, oh, we're going to another planet? Fuck, I got to see what they have for sale here. I got to get another blaster or plasma rifle or something. It's like, oh my god, guys, come on.
I remember running into that the first Star Wars game I played. That was, do you guys remember West End's D6 system Star Wars?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't play it, but I remember seeing it.
It wasn't that I don't remember that being an issue in that game. I do remember it.
I don't believe it was, because it was that was 90s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that was before the prequel movies came out. So like You know, a blaster's a blaster's a blaster. You either got the pistol version or you got the rifle version. That's pretty much
you had like a blaster, a heavy blaster, or a blaster rifle.
Yeah.
Go.
And that's pretty much it, you know, and you got a lightsaber. Okay.
Yeah.
But the expanded universe, the novels, the comic books, the prequels, the TV shows, yeah, everybody's got some unique thing stretching through the entirety of the Star Wars history. And it only even got more complicated when you had, you know, KOTOR and those other video games that came out, and they had to make, you know, oodles of loot for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, what happened, Jay?
Okay, so the exact details of the scenario, and realize this is no shade towards the game master who is running it. He's been doing a great job through the vast majority of his campaign. This is the first campaign he's ever run, so he's actually pretty new at game mastering. So we're chasing down a cult. We knew what city they were going to be in, but we didn't have any real details of where they were at. So we go to this city. You know, it's first day there. We find out there's all these gambling halls and, you know, arenas, etc. So we get a hotel room. One person who is actually has urban bounty hunter as their background goes out to gather information because that's what they're fucking able to do. Another person just kind of fucks off and does their own thing. 4 of us head to an arena. 2 of us are going to do gambling. 2 of them want to fight in the arena. And as like I said, newer game master ended up spending 2.5 hours running the arena portion of it. Everybody mostly just sat around while this took place. And, you know, it was fine for me. It was fine for the people who are involved. Everybody else just sort of twiddled their thumbs for the rest of the evening. Not a great session overall because of that. Me personally, if I'm running something like that, and if I'm not doing it the way Christian did it, because the 2 players who were involved in it, they did want to actually go do this fight. So that's cool. The way I would have done it is you do a fight, and then you transition to somebody else for a while and see what they're doing. And then when they're, you know, at a point you can transition away, you transition to somebody else. Sometimes players just are going to split up. You can't prevent it. And sometimes you have no options except to do it this way. You have to move from person to person to person rather than wholly focusing on one group.
Yeah, sure. Which is why I would say, like, hey, this still all sounds like downtime. If 2 people really wanted to fight it off, I would be like, look, if you guys really want to take the time to fight, you got to convince the rest of your crew to get involved.
The game master wanted to run this too.
Or as a DM, what you do to keep everyone else from being bored, instead of you running it, give their opponents to the rest of the party.
Oh yeah, that could have been more interesting.
Say, hey, I give you guys the opponents. That way, everybody's involved now. Everybody's engaged in this combat, this gladiatorial event. All your PCs all the players are doing something, and you don't have anyone just sitting there hanging out on their cell phone for 2.5 hours because they're not playing D&D anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's first time we've run into anything like that in this campaign. It'll probably be the last time because I did mention it to him afterwards. But yeah, so that was sort of what happened. Other than that, the campaign's been really good. We've been doing it for almost 6 months, I think, at this point, every other week. So
I think no matter what happens, no matter what kind of game you are, there's always going to be a game where you sit around and do nothing. Sometimes, like there's an opposite
game where you sit around and do nothing, and then there's the game where it feels like you're doing nothing because like there's no fights, but you're making deals, you're talking to NPCs, you're gathering information, you're prepping for the next game or whatever.
Exactly. It doesn't.
But there's no game that has that nothing technically happens.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is even if you're not doing fights or running into random encounters and stuff, if all the PCs are engaged in, role playing or digging for information, or even if they're just all talking and putting together a plan for what they want to do and how they think they should work, that's good because they're all engaged.
So this happened in AL last week and this week. One of my more steady players. His name is Mark. Mark is a very elderly gentleman who's been playing D&D most of his life, and he's been playing a cleric. And when his turn comes around, if everyone's healthy, it's just like, all right, well, best course of action, even from my perspective, is just, Sacred Flame, low level cantrip, something like that. Position myself right. Everyone's up. Yeah. Move on. And I think I had 13 people at the table. Which that happens sometimes in Adventures League, because everyone wants to play the main campaign that I'm running. They don't want to split off the second group. And so by the time it gets back around to Mark, and he was fine with this. He was joking with me about it. He's just like, all right, well, Sacred Flame, I guess, and see you all in 25 minutes. And I felt terrible for him. Adventures League is really the bare basics of stuff. I try to make sure that everyone gets a chance, and does something. Like Jay said, I'll bounce from person to person to person before someone else gets to step back in and do something. But I don't know how to make combat go any faster when you got 13 people.
You don't. I mean, that's literally
you don't have a 13-person group. I'm sorry.
No,
I know. Yeah.
Man.
I mean,
I applaud you for being the guy that will take on a 13-person group because you have that many people that want to play and you don't want to turn anybody away. But man, that you're just creating hell for yourself, but also boredom for your players.
Yeah, I'm trading one problem for another. Yeah, it's a hard balance of things. So
I know it's an impossible balance, dude. It's impossible. You cannot run a 13-person party and have everybody stay entertained. You cannot.
Yeah.
Because like you said, even Shadow Dark or Pirate Board, I don't think you could do because there's just too many people at the table.
Yep. Yeah. Even when the turns are really quick, it's just too many.
Yeah, it'd be easier in those systems because the turns are so fast, but it would still, that's the point where you are really stretching the limit of even, rules light and fast combat systems.
Yeah.
Because there's just so many of the turns that even if they're short, even if everybody takes their turn in 1 minute, you still have somebody that's got 12 minutes before their next turn comes around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris, how many did we have in that Star Wars game? Was it 9?
Yeah, we had 9 people, and the thing with the Star Wars game was that, that group, especially the excited leaders, Mike and Lloyd, they love that kind of stuff, and I think the entire group is kind of built around them as the cornerstones for a lot of things, and I'm weird, so I was built for combat and charisma stuff. I was the charisma rogue, pheromone chick. That's who I was. So when I'm not needed, there's nothing I can do, but I'm sitting at home behind my computer. I can play Peglin, and have a grand old time listening to them shop for 3 hours.
Yeah, but
even fine with it.
Even when we would go into combat, because I was not playing a combat style character, my turn was I shoot once, I'm done. And then 45 minutes later, my next turn comes back up.
Yeah.
That's why I left that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very rough, from that perspective. But I think that, we had really big swingy turns, so it made the combat kind of difficult sometimes. But like I said, overall, I did have fun. But I would say there was a lot of time where I was just sitting there playing Peglin. But I didn't mind listening to things going on. But I'm a very different particular player. I don't mind just sitting there listening to people
do that.
play.
I'm going to sit there and watch videos or do anything else. I have to keep my brain focused.
I mean, even in college when I was bunking with my good friend John, I would just sit there and watch him play Diablo 2,
That's a little different. I mean,
it kind of is, but it was the same feeling, watching people play stuff on Twitch. I would attribute that to the same kind of feeling. But then again, that's not for everybody,
Yep.
So it is what it is.
All right.
So moving on, do we want to talk about the Psion?
No.
Yeah, let's get it out of the way.
We already talked about it 3 times.
We've yet to talk about it at all.
We did not. We've checked the transcript.
Yep. We'll keep it brief.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. So this is take 3 for a 5th edition-ish Scion class. They had the Mystic in 5e, and then they had a second take on the Mystic at some point. And then neither of those went, and so
the closest we ever got to it, I believe, was the Aberrant Sorcerer.
Yeah, that was the closest. And then now here's the Scion.
What are you talking about? There's a rogue psionic class. There's a fighter subclass that's psionics. There's like 3 different ones that are all psionics.
Yes, but there's no just straight caster.
Yeah. Well, they're not supposed to be casters in the first place. They're supposed to be psionicists. But
right. Squishy guy that can do lots of psionics. There's no whatchamacallit, from the X-Men, Professor X.
Yeah.
There's no Professor X.
Yeah, so this one is the way it works out is it feels a lot. It's just a full caster. It's sort of like a warlock, sort of like a sorcerer, but it's essentially just another D&D 5-ish style full caster.
Yep. You get cantrips, you get prepared spells, you get spell slots.
It feels very much just like any other full caster. It's got a mentalist kind of flavor instead of being like its own thing. And there's some benefits and some hindrances to that kind of approach. In that you don't have to answer that weird question of like, if your psionics and your magic systems are totally different, well, what happens when they interact? Yeah. That was always annoying to solve. So
yeah.
On the other hand, you lose some of your flavor, I guess. You lose some of that uniqueness in that because it does mechanically operate very similar to just another spellcaster.
Yeah, largely taking spells from Bard and Wizard for the most part.
Yeah. Now, most of the spells feel like, pretty easy read for psionic mentalist type abilities. A lot of them feel, there's some that are a little weird, but for the most part, I think the spell list is, makes sense when you think about it. I was really interested in the note when they talk about a scion, they talk about where early psionics came from in first edition, where anybody with high enough intellect scores or intelligence scores could potentially develop a small amount of psionic powers.
Oh, I remember rolling for that in second edition.
Yeah. In second edition, it was a little different. In second edition, they had the Complete Psionics Handbook. And this introduced psionics, the psionicist class, and wild talents, which anybody could try to roll. If you were implementing psionics, you could just say, hey, anybody has a chance to get wild talents. If you're a dark side, everybody gets a wild talent. But everyone gets a chance to do it. But it did create this whole other subsection of the game where psionics operated totally different than any other system in the game. And they had a lot of their own weird rules and things. It could be interesting, but it could also slow down combat a lot.
That's for sure.
But you'll see some of that old stuff reflected here in this class when they, talk about, hey, you get a psionic discipline. Well, disciplines used to be the kind of, you remember in like first and second edition where pre-spells were divided into spheres instead of like spell schools.
Mm-hmm.
Well, disciplines and psionics were kind of your big containers for groups of psionic powers. So you would have like the telepathy discipline, and then within that you would have sciences.
Yep.
And I forget what the lesser one was called. Mm-hmm. But you had you had greater powers and lesser powers essentially. But they were all they would all fit into that one discipline. And you would advance.
You can think of these disciplines honestly as like the different spell schools for wizards.
They were kind of like the spell schools. You had telepathy, you had psychoportation, you had psychokinesis, and all the kind of devotions. They were sciences and devotions.
Yeah.
And you would learn a certain number of disciplines, as you advanced. And so, unlike a caster that could just say, well, I can pick my spells however I want. Like, you could only learn stuff under the discipline that you knew. So, like, when you started out and you only knew one discipline, you were very focused and limited as to what kind of psionic powers you could wield.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I always liked that.
I did too. I thought that made Psionics really feel different than spellcasters, because even specialist spellcasters were like, I'm good at this one school, but I can use every school except for this one other one that I'm forbidden from because of my specialty.
Yep.
But Psionics was different. It was, I can only use this, and eventually you advance to where, like, I can use a few more, but you were still always kind of very limited in the number of powers that you had. Kind of like early sorcerers when they first came out were very limited in spells, and your whole thing was, I cast more spells than you, but I don't know very many.
Yeah, I played a third edition sorcerer to very high levels, and there was a lot of times where I'm like, well, I can throw more fireballs. I can't cast dispel magic because I don't know it, but
yeah. And so Psionics in second edition were kind of like that. You do, very limited amount of stuff, and so you kind of had to be careful what you chose and decide, do I just want to be really good at this one thing, or do I want to do a couple of things and be all right at it to kind of spread out my options? But they even talk about that in the handbook of, like, there's a reason why, psionicists will adventure with other people, because, many of them are very highly specialized, and outside of that specialty, they become much more limited in what they can do and become very vulnerable.
Yep. And golems also don't really take mind affecting very well.
There were plenty of creatures out there that did not care about psionics whatsoever.
Yeah.
So this one just kind of feels like a 5th edition spellcaster, though. It does have the psionic energy die that you'll use for certain things, like the fighter and rogue psion variants,
Yeah.
But it gets cantrips and spells just like every other caster. And I kind of don't like that. So here disciplines take the form of basically kind of a psionic equivalent of warlock invocations.
Yeah, which I really hate.
Yeah, I do too. I'll just leave it at that. I also dislike that.
Yep. Like some of them are fine, but it's just the fact that, okay, so you're just taking a sorcerer and mixing it with a warlock, and that's where you get this weird class that also has a die that you'll use for some of these psionic disciplines. It doesn't feel unique. It just feels like they took 3 different things and threw them together.
Yes. Yeah.
Just mashing it together.
Yep.
Now, subclasses, I kind of like where they landed with some of the subclasses. I didn't think I would, but some of them are kind of all right. The metamorph is kind of this really weird kind of body horror monster.
Yeah. The metamorph I kind of like, because in second edition, the Psionics, one of the disciplines, I don't remember what the hell it was called, but it was basically you could mutate your body, you could shape your body.
Psychometabolism, I think.
Yeah, psychometabolism. And
it was the body shifting one. It was weird.
Yeah, but it was cool, and there was a lot of weird things you could do, and that's kind of what this is trying to do.
Yes. So I could see where they were with all of this. They took a lot of their inspiration from, like, I could see the second edition influences or inspirations, and this one was the kind of neat because it felt very weird.
Yeah, it's almost a fighter-esque class, or a lot of kind of hex bladey.
Yeah, it's your spellblade. Your spellblade that almost every caster has some version, like where you get hey, here's your melee caster-ish version. It's a hexblade, or it's a blade singer, or the whatever the bard fighter version is, the battles or
swords, I think.
It's not swords anymore. It's the I don't remember.
I don't play bards.
But it's that kind of thing. It's where you mix up melee and your spell casting. But this one is just weird because you're shifting your hand into a fleshy mallet of bone and flesh.
Hell yeah!
Yeah. Or literally it's changing your hand into a viscera launcher that fires your body's internal bile at people. It's like it's
okay, I do like that.
It's fantastically weird. So that one this is the best of them because it's so weird and they just didn't hold back on the weirdness.
Yep.
And that's where we should be going with this, rather than how can we make this just like all the other classes? In fact, why don't we just combine them all together?
Yeah, the Psywarper I was the most disappointed with because it was just a weird, like, they make it out to be, it's like this, this is going to be like they manipulate time and space and matter and gravity. And then it's really just, I cast Misty Step and teleport a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like literally almost everything, every other subclass that is in 2025? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool.
It feels like they wanted to do the Critical Role's Graviturgist wizard, where they actually could create like black holes and gravity sinks and stuff.
Let me tell you, I have played that subclass in a one-shot. It is the most broken goddamn thing that's been put out.
Oh, it looks like it too. Yeah.
Oh, it's very busted at higher levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I played one at level 18, and let's just say when you make a black hole, and you have your Simulacrum that's also making like black holes and reverse gravity all at the same time.
Yeah,
you just ruined the encounter for the DM.
Sure, but they could have leaned into that in a little more way than just, hey, you can Misty Step and teleport. Like, I would have rather seen it like, hey, you could, like, they kind of have a little bit of it in that you can cast Shatter and pull people into the middle of the Shatter if they fail to save, and that's okay.
Cool. I'm okay with that. That's a thing.
But
it's different.
Do more of that. Do more of make it weird like the metamorph. Like make the if you're making it teleport around, make the teleport weird. Make it disturbing. Like you're literally pulling open a rift in space and
make it random.
So this is what it reminds me of. In 7th Sea, there's 7th Sea was a game. Was like a swashbuckling, that kind of game, but each kind of faux nation, and they were all based off nations of Europe, had their own form of weird sorcery. And the French nation, Montaigne, its sorcery was called Porta, and it was all about teleporting. But the way they teleported is you would have to put blood on an object, and then you could walk your way to that object wherever it was. Whether it's a coin in someone's pocket where you could just go to where they were, or if you just left some drops of blood in someone's house and then you go. But the way they walked wasn't just some weird teleport. They literally ripped open, and it described it as a flesh-ripping sound when they opened the portal. And then you had to walk through this area, and you could take people with you, but while you walked through this nebulous space, like you're supposed to close your eyes and things whisper at you to try to tempt you off the path, and then you would get there, and it takes you some time where it feels like time passes to you, but the teleport is effectively instantaneous.
Yeah, but have you heard about Misty Step?
Yes, I know.
Isn't that the same thing like with Nightcrawler's ability, where like when his mutant ability is when he teleports, he actually he opens up a rift through like hell essentially.
Yeah,
he comes out through the other side. And one time they had to slow it down so they could go into the hell dimension and drop off Wolverine for some reason, because Wolverine.
I don't know. It depends on what version of Nightcrawler you're on in the comics, which retcon you're on. But
that's fair. It may have been the 96 X-Men, I think.
Yeah, but either way, I felt like that was a big miss. It's a lot of like generic D&D teleport, and that's no fun. And then you have a Psykinetic and a Telepath, which do either telekinesis things or mind power things. They're both meh. They're both kind of boring.
They're both okay.
They do the kind of things that you would think, but the kind of things you think, they don't make those things very interesting.
Yep. Yeah, because I love the idea of telekinesis. It's one of the most underutilized things in D&D. You can do a lot of shit with it, but they've designed 5e so that you can't really do a lot of things with it. And that's kind of my thoughts on it. They could have done this and made it actually cool, but
they try to. You have a thing, your 3rd level thing for the telekinetic one is telekinetic boosts.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at.
But they had the idea of, hey, we should try to make it interesting, but they didn't execute well, in my opinion. It still comes out feeling kind of generic and boring. It's the Derek, your speed is decreased or increased, or you have disadvantage on opportunity attacks, or you take a small amount of force damage, and it's all just very boring.
Yeah.
Well, that force damage, it'll stack up by the time you're 14th level.
Yeah, when you'll get to roll a d12 force damage for someone when you use that ability. Woo.
Ranger's playing his tiniest fiddle.
But
at least they did add in some spells. I say that in quotations.
There's a few.
So, some of them are carryovers from just 5e, like Psychic Scream. There may be changes to the spell, but it was a spell. Intellect Fortress, I don't remember it being in 5th, but it's definitely a 2nd edition thing.
Yes. That is one of the... Some of the things they brought in are homages or inspirations from those old second. In 2nd edition, you used to have 5 psionic attack modes and 5 psionic defense modes. Because when you entered into combat with another psionics user, you could attempt to engage in each other in this weird mental combat, and each attack mode would be better against certain defense modes, and it was just a matter of what attack modes you knew and what defense modes you would use, and you would basically just sit there and have a stare. To everyone else, it looks like you're having a staring contest with the other guy, where you're trying to prod and poke and attack each other's mental defenses, so that you can do things like dominate them and turn them against their enemies. But it just looks like two old bald mystics staring at each other,
and then somebody's head fucking explodes. Just like in Trancers. I see they brought Tasha's Mind Whip back, which is a very, very good spell.
What?
Tasha's Mind Whip.
Whip it.
Whip it good.
Whip.
Yep.
They have a summon astral entity, which is one of their new summoning spells, which I do like a good summoning spell. I don't know what's particularly psionic about it. I guess
it probably deals psychic damage.
That's it. That's really it.
Yeah.
But I do like a good summon spell, and that seems fine.
So all in all, I don't think any of us are particularly impressed with this thing, but.
No, I did, since we delayed and talk about this, I did notice something that now has me worried.
Oh.
So the
Dark
feats...
Sun?
Yeah, the feats are called Wild Talent feats.
Okay.
Wild Talents were something that, they were mentioned in the old 2nd edition thing. That's something you could potentially use as an optional rule if you wanted.
Oh, right.
Dark Sun... Every character got a wild talent because psionics were infused in that game. So everyone had a small psychic ability. You may not be able to use it much, or you might not be very good at it, but everyone had one. And the fact that they are introducing these are feats, and these are origin feats. They're supposed to take the place of the feats that you would get at your character origin. And that makes me worried that maybe they are going to attempt to do Dark Sun. And
not a chance in hell.
So,
I really don't want them to. I really don't. I do not want to see a generic, bland, corporate Dark Sun.
Dark Sun.
There has been a lot of chatter recently about why Dark Sun may actually be happening with this new edition, because in the player's handbook, the 2024 player handbook, and the 2024 DMG, they do mention Dark Sun in there. They note the halflings definitely difference in halfling types, and how in Dark Sun the halflings are like this compared to Eberron's halflings.
Cannibals. They're fucking cannibals is what they are.
Technically no, because halflings...
They don't eat halflings.
Exactly.
They eat every other thing.
Yes.
In the DMG, it mentioned Dark Sun as a possible campaign setting. Heroes make their mark in a post-apocalyptic world defiled by magic and forsaken by the gods. and then with the Scion class releases and the Wild talent, like you just mentioned, people are assuming that there's going to be one on the horizon. One hasn't been hinted at or leaked, just the Eberron stuff and a couple of the other books, but who knows? They could be trying it.
Here's the thing: I don't care if they release it or not, because I don't. Because I'm probably not going to buy it. 2, I don't really run or play 5e at this point. 3, it's dead property. Nobody's able to do anything with it. So unless they're going to sell Dark Sun off to some other company who can do it right, either don't do anything with it or just fucking release it as a 5e thing and make it shitty. I don't really care, because they're not going to sell it off to somebody else.
No, they're not. I really wish they would release, if there's stuff that they are just determined that they're not going to use, I would wish they would release it into the Creative Commons.
That'd be great, but they're not going to ever do that.
No, they won't ever let their death grip of any sort of IP go.
It's a valid thing to release content for in DM's Guild.
Yeah. You know what? There would be one thing where I might potentially buy the Dark Sun book. If all of the art in it was done by Braum.
If it's done by Braum, then that's legit. I would probably buy it, if nothing else, just to look at
just
the pretty
for the art
pictures. Yeah.
Well,
by the way, did you know that Braum actually writes his own books and shit now?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. I just thought he was an artist, but I came across a book he had released last year, I think it was.
Well, the other thing to note too is that the only time someone that was officially WotC mentioned anything about Dark Sun was Kyle Brink back in 2023 when he was talking to Bob the World Builder, and he said that Dark Sun is too problematic in a lot of ways, and that's the main reason they haven't gone back to it.
Yeah,
Kyle Brink no longer is a part of WotC, so maybe he was the holdout. Probably not, but he's valid in his statement. I wouldn't want to risk it now. Dark Sun's not a setting for today's culture. But
no, people would whine and bitch too much. It has slavery in it, which is exactly what happened.
All right, I don't want to get in a tangent, but the one thing about that is, even in second edition, back when it came out, it was, if you actually read the setting, it was blatantly clear that they regarded all of that as the bad guys.
Oh yeah.
Like, the fact that it exists was not like something that was said, this is good. They hinted at that as, this is why society is bad, because it's controlled by these immortal evil kings who enforce this thing upon people. Like, it was clearly propositioned as a bad thing, or positioned as a bad thing that you should be opposed to.
Yep.
Yeah. And like I said,
here's the thing though, all their slavery in it. I mean, you know what? Look at Forgotten Realms. Thread Wizards of they are slavers. There are a number of slaving-based cultures in Forgotten Realms. Guess what? You guys fight them. That's literally part of the story.
And I go back to the book that Ed Greenwood put out last year on DM's Guild, Thay and Land of the Red Wizards. It says slavery in Thay. Although slavery is known and accepted by the I can't read today, man. The LARP has killed me. By the aristocracy of Thay, it is not accepted elsewhere in the Forgotten Realms and beyond. If your games broach this topic in more than a passing manner, it should be made expressly clear that this is an evil act and one that should be rectified. Alongside that, no matter how quote-unquote good a Thane may pretend to be, those that allow the continued practice of slavery are inherently evil. And I think we all are in a modern state of being that this is a bad thing. It's a bad topic. It sucked that it happened in human history, and we're not going to repeat it at all to the best of our ability. And if you want to start breaching adult serious topics like that, you have to have a setting, a play group, and a group of people that can maturely address that topic. Slavers still happen in all broad sense of media. It happened in Game of Thrones. It's the most recent thing off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure you guys just finished watching Andor, where actually I'll take that from Thor, where he called them slaves. He says, no, I don't like that word. Prisoners with jobs. Oh yeah, that's better. Like, it's still the thing. But it all depends on how you approach it, and whether or not it even remotely touched.
It's just people have this mindset with Dark Sun that it is problematic, and the reason that they say it's problematic is specifically because of the slavery that is inherent in all of the cultures in that setting.
Right. But also, too, you can also put a next Dark Sun setting that's 300 years in the future of that setting, and who knows what's changed since then, you know? And it could be a dark part of their past history. The halflings...
Listen, guys, I'm not going to hypothesize what they are.
Yeah.
What I will say is this.
Yeah.
TSR is going to... Or, it's not TSR. WotC's going to shit the bed.
Oh,
They shit the bed every single time they've tried to reinvigorate a old TSR property. And whether it's going to be fucking Mystara or Birthright or goddamn Dark Sun next, it doesn't matter what it's going to be. It will suck, and it will get ignored, just like the last 3 properties that they've tried to come back with.
Pretty much, yeah. I think Forgotten Realms has pretty much been the only one they've done successfully.
Yeah. I mean, they could probably do Greyhawk
somewhat successfully
because it's so generic. Fantasy?
It's also generic kitchen sink fantasy. Yeah,
it's just it's really
mysterious. They have a mysterious, unannounced October release.
Great and lovely. Can't wait.
It's going to be
we can start hypothesizing about Dark Sun. Something will happen. You know what? They've already kind of done Ravenloft anyway. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm not worried about it, and I really don't care.
Yeah,
I probably won't buy it anyway. If I want, sword and sorcery, I'm gonna go play something else.
Conan.
I'm gonna play Conan. I'm gonna play Shadow Dark. I'll play. I'll play literally anything. I'll play John Carter or fucking Mars. I mean, there's plenty of other games to play.
Yep, and I play most of them.
You said there's a mystery release for October?
Yeah.
Everything that I see shows everything's been announced. So you got Dragon Delves in July, Eberron in August, the starter set, Heroes of the Borderlands in September, Forgotten Realms Player Guide in November, and the Adventures Guide in November, and then Shadowmoor in early 2026.
But you didn't say anything
they
in
mentioned
October.
They are somewhere. They in the Romat. They mentioned something that they are having an October release, and they have not announced what that is.
Whatever it is, I'm sure it's going to be something that doesn't really matter.
Mediocre.
Well, they did a bunch of horror subclasses here in UA, and
oh yeah, okay. So it'll be the not Ravenloft, another Domains of Dread for 5.5 or something.
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, a lot of releases actually follow D&D Online as well too, because they try to keep those products matching up, so you can kind of tell what's going to come up by what they're approaching with the D&D Online. And they're not doing anything new to my knowledge. They just did a Red Wizards of Thay thing recently.
Yep.
Oh, well.
So anyway, that we're done with the Psion class.
Are we done now? Because I don't want to come back next week and be like, hey, let's talk about the Psion. We haven't talked about it at all because we've talked about it 4 times now.
Well, we what we have to do? We have to stop talking about everything when we're not on the podcast. Just everything. That way we don't have to ever worry about that.
Yeah, that's
people should come watch us on Twitch where we can talk. We will also talk about D&D a lot too.
Right? Yeah, they can do that, and then we'll talk about it on the podcast also.
And then Chris will continue to be confused.
Yeah. Did we talk about that? I could have sworn we talked about that already.
I'm not confused. You're confused.
You're confused.
You're confused.
Where am I?
What else we got?
I did have a question for you guys. Do you want to take?
Nope.
Okay. Well, everyone except for Dan. Then, do you guys want to basically get together and go out to? I believe it's in Massachusetts, and head up to the D&D tavern and play D&D for a whole week.
Really?
Massachusetts, man, I don't ever want to go to Massachusetts again if I don't have to.
So, I found this
long
place,
drive and it's cold.
called Maple Rock Resorts, and they have a bunch of wedding and vacation rentals. And one of the rentals that I saw was this place called the D&D Tavern. I put a link up into our podcast chat on our Discord, or you can just Google D&D Tavern, Maple Rock Resorts. And so I started kind of going through here and looking at what's involved in this D&D Tavern. And the first picture that they show off is a basketball court that has like the D&D logo and a D20 spray painted onto it. So already, like, that is wrong. That is the worst thing to show me.
I'm glad you brought that up because I haven't even clicked on the link. I'm just seeing the picture.
Going to do this with us, or I mean, what's happening?
I don't know. I don't know. But then when you start going through the other pictures, they have like a small bricked up tavern-like environment. But like the next picture, they show that there's like cornhole and a Connect 4 board outside. And when you get inside, and actually look at what's inside this building, there's a big ass D&D table. Okay, but the lighting is dark and dreary. Like, it's gonna be hard to play games in there, read text. There's a wall of like vintage arcade machines. All right, they have a giant like 100-foot screen, like projector screen where they have a bunch of pre-programmed games in there, like sport games. They have an outdoor full-size chess board.
Wait. What kind of games?
Like sport games. Like you throw the ball at the screen and it's your pitch was this fast, or you play golf at it and shit like that. Awesome. Or you project a movie or something.
Very D&D. Great.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So like the only thing that's
what is the name of this place again?
It's called the D&D Tavern at the Maple Rock Resorts.
It sounds like somebody, I don't know how they got the idea, but it sounds like someone's like, hey, we need to find ways to attract different kinds of guests throughout the year or whatever. And someone's like, hey, isn't D&D getting popular? And they were like, sure, let's try to market to that. But they had no idea what D&D actually was.
Oh my god, look at that Blue Dragon bedspread.
Yeah.
Okay, in a D&D wrapped refrigerator.
Okay, let me be the first one to say that the table that they have with the Dungeon Master chair there, if I sat at that table for 3 or 4 hours, I wouldn't be able to move because those are fucking hard pine.
Oh yeah, the backless benches there. What the fuck?
Oh my! That's a place where you sit down, eat your hot dog, and then get the fuck up and leave. Like, that's not a place you sit for 4 hours playing tabletop games.
Like, it's clear they spent a lot of money on this, but what is happening?
This is very much what someone in corporate thinks D&D is.
Okay, so Maple Rock Lodge. I don't even know what it is, but this is what reminds. I went to Great Wolf Lodge with my family last year, and it's basically an indoor water park that you can go to year round. But they had like a Dollar General version of Harry Potter Wizards, where like you can like buy a wand for way too much money, and your kid can go around and like wave it at a computer screen, and like maybe there's an animatronic dragon or something that they had to defeat. That's what this reminds me of. This is like a corporate goons version of, hey, can we license this? Because actually, I'm guessing they licensed it because fuck, they got the and logo on the basketball court.
Yeah.
Look at this narrow ass bathroom. Holy crap!
Yeah, well, Chris could not fit in that bathroom.
Can I just also say that the tavern? Oh my god, with the beautiful picnic table of a D&D table with Time Crisis, the arcade behind it, but also if you take a look at the actual decor of the space, you've got plywood on the ceiling with some downlights cut into it. All of the wood in there looks like somebody took a fucking blowtorch to.
Yeah.
To make it look aged, I guess. But they don't really know how to make it look aged, so they just kind of burned it.
Also, some of the panels are set at like where the grain is going different directions.
Yeah, I mean this is like a DIY. Like, I don't know.
It is.
I've got to go through. What is Maple Rock Resorts? Because I don't know how this happened. Like, how could this have happened?
That bed
Luxury
is set where I'm
vacation
gonna
rental.
hit. I feel like I'm gonna hit my head when I sit up because it's like the head is towards where the slope is down. Like it's a sloped ceiling going down, and the head of the bed is there.
Yeah,
And
I
like,
would have my head at the other end.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is very, very corporate. If you go back to the base page of Maple Rock Resorts, you've got the Clue Mansion.
Yeah,
And,
I was going to get to that.
I can go ahead and tell you right now, I've been to a better murder mystery party than whatever the fuck this is. Jesus Christ! And it was at an apartment. Oh my god, that indoor spa looks like it's just a death trap. It's like you get up on a fucking countertop and then slip across linoleum tile.
What I love too is like there's like a putting green for the D&D place too, and for the Clue place. They each have their own basketball court and small putting green.
Complex. Yes, you can set up. Yeah, I like how the basketball court has a tennis net as well as fucking soccer nets.
Soccer goals.
Basketball goals.
And they just call it sports complex.
Oh my god, the life-size Clue game, life-size Clue being all of like, I don't know, 6 feet by 8 feet, surrounded by a couple of D6s that are maybe about as big as I can print on my 3D printer.
So they have the Clue Mansion, the Monopoly House, the Big Brother House. Let me tell you, that is not one I would ever want to stay in.
Why does every one of these have like an arcade with Mortal Kombat and fucking Pac-Man in it?
No. Did you see how they spelled fitness center?
Oh Lord.
FID? No. FID-ness.
Oh yeah, it's very English.
What I found funny the most of
the hockey shootout.
What I liked the best about it is that like
Oh my god.
if you look through all these pictures, like the clue room and the D&D room, most of the pictures are them playing sports. So like of the 21 photos of the D&D tavern, 11 of them are sports related, or playing the video sports on their 100-inch screen, which is just a projector screen that they put up.
If you guys just keep on going through the pictures here, like they have like 3D models of the Clue Mansion, like breaking it out like it's like The Sims. They got disc golf up in here. I mean, like I really do feel like some bigwig manager.
Did you see the indoor balcony?
Yeah,
as a selling point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, indoor balcony, fucking fantastic for your stupid double height living room that's going to echo throughout the place and can't sleep. The Mrs. Peacock room, of course. I really do feel like they didn't hire an interior designer. What they did was they hired like somebody's kids. Be like, hey, can you make this like, I don't know, Clue? Like, yeah, I have no ideas about that, but I will Google that for you, and then I will paint some rooms mustard yellow.
And
plums
there's going to be one red, purple, one red, one blue.
And then they just keep on showing up every week being like, you know what, actually we need another 10 grand because I got to install a basketball court, but also a tennis court, and also Galaga.
What I think happened, and this is total hypothesis, is like a man owned all of this, and they were all luxury, like luxury vacation rentals, okay? And the man died, and someone else inherited them. He's like, you know what? I'm going to facelift all of them and give them all a theme. And he just went buck wild and just made a bunch of these, and this is what they're left with. Like, Professor Plum's sitting on the fitness equipment, like, oh my god.
But here's the thing, though. Like, I'm looking through these photos. Like, they're calling these places mansions, and then they're like high quality. Like, these are shit houses. These are Airbnbs that have been fucking like painted with like, I don't know, a life-size chess piece in a basketball court thrown outside. These are not nice places. I've stayed in better B&Bs for less money for sure.
I just want to know why the Clue Mansion has a Pink Floyd poster, Guns N' Roses poster, all of these things in the
Next
arcade.
to the Mortal Kombat? Fuck yeah.
Like,
all right.
Like the Clue Mansion.
Waples, good find, man. And I will not go with you and rent this fucking place.
No.
This looks awful.
It's so I think it's actually somewhere in Canada because I just looked because I get the paying in Canadian, and it's only like $5,000 for 8 people. So,
oh, That it? Is that it?
That it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, good find. That was entertaining is what that was.
That was something.
Yes,
Definitely
it
something.
was.
All right.
I am decking out the D&D room at my LGS. It will not look anything like this. I'll take pictures of it and we can compare what looks more like a D&D room when we're all said and done.
I mean,
Sounds great.
I don't know. Basically, any given basement filled with the appropriate amount of nerdery is a D&D room. You know, people can call it a quote-unquote man cave, but it's a nerd cave. Come on now.
That's true.
Yep. All right.
Or the dungeon, if you will.
Any last topics before we wrap this thing up?
No, I don't think so. Not this week.
I don't have anything.
We've done enough.
You've done enough, Waples.
As we've,
I want to talk about the Psion next week, so remind me to do that.
I will definitely be happy to talk more about the Scion next week.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
We'll hit it again.
Yeah, if we hit it a few more times, maybe they just won't do it.
As we slowly transition our podcast into a hotel review podcast.
Oh yes,
Hotel and wrestling review.
I mean, I remember Dan used to post about the McMansions on Facebook all the time and
oh
just
my
rip
god,
them apart.
McMansion Hell is
I'm here for it.
Follow if you guys ever need a laugh.
Yeah, I'm fucking here for it. Let's
that
do
and
it.
Zilla Going Wild is fantastic.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up.
Y'all.
All right. Later, guys. Bye, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
Bye, Greg.